The story begins with a meteor packed with a powerful substance called quantonium racing toward Earth. At the same time, deep inside a US Antarctic research station, two technicians detect the incoming object. When they realize it's headed straight for Modesto, California, they immediately contact their superiors and report the situation. Meanwhile, we're introduced to a young woman named Susan Murphy, who's fast asleep in her room. Suddenly, her friends wake her up. They excitedly turn on the TV, where Susan's boyfriend Derek is being interviewed about their upcoming wedding. Since the wedding is only days away, Susan is thrilled to hear him talking about their future together. Later, after getting ready, Susan joins her mom downstairs. Her mom smiles and says, "You look beautiful today." Soon, the whole family heads to Modesto for the wedding. After arriving, Susan meets her father, who becomes emotional and jokes that his little girl is finally leaving home. The moment nearly brings him to tears. Inside the house, everyone is busy with wedding preparations. A little later, Susan waits in a quiet spot for Derek. When he arrives, she excitedly tells him, "After the wedding, we're finally going to Paris for our honeymoon." But Derek has some disappointing news. "Our Paris trip is canceled." Susan is shocked. Derek explains that he recently received an important call from his boss. A major promotion opportunity has come up, and he has to travel to Fresno for work. Because of that, their honeymoon plans have changed too. Susan agrees because she wants Derek to be happy. Afterward, Derek heads into the church and tells Susan he'll see her inside. As she's standing alone, Susan suddenly notices a glowing meteor streaking across the sky. To her horror, it's heading straight toward her. She tries to run away, but it's too late. The meteor crashes directly into her. A burst of quantonium energy is absorbed into her body. Moments later, her mother finds her covered in dirt and mud. Assuming she simply had an accident, her mom takes her inside to get cleaned up. Soon, the wedding ceremony begins. Susan walks into the church with her father, and the guests are delighted to see her. But something strange is happening. Her body starts glowing with a mysterious light. Everyone notices it. Then things get even worse. Susan suddenly begins growing and growing and growing. Within seconds, she's towering over everyone inside the church. Terrified guests scream and run for safety. The church starts collapsing around her as her massive size tears the building apart. During the chaos, Derek becomes trapped under falling debris. Thankfully, Susan manages to rescue him before he's seriously hurt. Moments later, military forces arrive on the scene. Seeing Susan as a potential threat, they quickly move in. Before she can understand what's happening, they inject her with a powerful sedative. Susan loses consciousness and is taken away. When she wakes up, she finds herself in a highly classified government facility. She's transported by elevator into a secure holding area. There, she encounters a strange creature known as Dr. Cockroach. At first, Susan panics and tries to attack him, but Dr. Cockroach explains that he was once a scientist whose experiment went horribly wrong, transforming him into a monster. A moment later, another creature named Bob. Bob is a blob-like monster created from a failed food experiment. Because his body is made of a jelly-like substance, soon, another monster arrives. His name is the Missing Link, a half-human, half-fish creature. He immediately starts showing off and trying to impress Susan. Just then, a bell rings, signaling mealtime. The monsters head off to eat together. While exploring the facility, Susan suddenly comes face to face with a gigantic insect called Insectosaurus. The enormous creature scares her half to death. That's when General W.R. Monger arrives. He's the officer in charge of the secret monster facility. General Monger orders all the monsters back to their cells and takes Susan with him. Confused, Susan asks, "Where am I?" The general explains, "You're inside a top-secret government facility." Then he delivers the bad news. "Because of what happened to you, you're now classified as a monster. That means you can no longer contact the outside world." Susan is devastated. She just wants to go home and see her family again. As if things couldn't get any worse, General Monger informs her that the government has already assigned her a new name, Gynormica. Hearing that makes Susan even more upset. Meanwhile, far out in space, we're introduced to an alien leader named Galaxar. Using his advanced computer systems, Galaxar discovers that quantonium has reached Earth. Determined to claim it for himself, he orders a robotic probe to travel to the planet. He then tells his computer, "I want every piece of information available about quantonium." The robotic probe immediately launches toward Earth. Meanwhile, we're shown a couple enjoying a date in their car late at night. Suddenly, all of the vehicle's electronics stop working. The reason? Galaxar's robotic probe has just landed on Earth. The strange machine terrifies the couple. By the next morning, US military forces have surrounded the area. News of the mysterious object spreads across the country within hours. Soon, President Hathaway arrives at the scene to investigate personally. Hoping to communicate peacefully, he approaches the robotic probe, but instead of responding, the robot suddenly attacks him. The president quickly runs for cover and orders the military to open fire. Soldiers unleash everything they have: bullets, missiles, heavy weapons, but nothing works. The robot is completely unaffected. Realizing the threat is far beyond anything they expected, President Hathaway calls an emergency meeting in San Francisco. There, he asks his advisors for ideas on how to stop the robot. Unfortunately, nobody has a solution. That's when General W.R. Monger steps forward. "I have an idea." Everyone turns toward him. "Our weapons can't stop this thing. So instead of sending soldiers, we send monsters." The general explains that he spent the last 50 years capturing and containing the world's most dangerous monsters. After hearing his plan, the president gives him permission to proceed. Back at the secret facility, all of the monsters are gathered together. Dr. Cockroach is still trying to help Susan return to normal through his experiments. Susan desperately wants her old life back. Just then, General Monger enters the room. "I have good news." The monsters immediately get excited. The general continues, "You're all leaving this facility." Everyone cheers. But then he adds, "First, you have to defeat a giant robot." The room goes silent. If you destroy it, the monsters eagerly accept the mission. Soon, they board a military aircraft and head toward the city. Meanwhile, the military is evacuating civilians and trying to clear the area before the robot causes more destruction. As the aircraft arrives, the monsters jump down into the city. For the first time in years, they're free to walk around in the outside world. They're amazed by everything they see, but their excitement doesn't last long. The giant robot suddenly appears. The monsters are shocked by its size. The robotic probe immediately detects the quantonium energy inside Susan. As a result, it locks onto her and begins chasing her through the city. Susan runs as fast as she can. Eventually, she reaches the Golden Gate Bridge, but the robot follows her there and attempts to capture her. As the two struggle, parts of the bridge begin collapsing. Cars start falling toward the water below. Despite the danger, Susan rushes to save the civilians first. The robot then launches another attack. Thankfully, Insectosaurus arrives to help, but the machine is incredibly powerful and quickly gains the upper hand. The missing link jumps into the fight to support Susan. A powerful hit knocks him unconscious. Seeing her friends getting hurt, Susan decides to fight back. She tells B.A.B., "Move those barriers and help everyone get out of here." Meanwhile, Dr. Cockroach attempts to disable the robot by destroying its control center. But before he can finish the job, Susan unleashes her full strength. With one massive attack, she completely destroys the robotic probe. High above Earth, Galaxar watches everything happen. He's furious. His robot was supposed to bring Quantonium back to him. Angrily, he orders another probe to be prepared. However, the ship's computer informs him that Susan has become too powerful because of the Quantonium. No ordinary robot will be able to capture her. Galaxar decides to handle the situation himself. He sets a course for Earth. Meanwhile, the monsters celebrate their victory. For the first time, they feel like real heroes. Susan smiles. "My normal life is waiting for me, and Derek won't rest until he finds a way to help me." To Susan, Derek is still the love of her life. Dr. Cockroach grins. "We've heard so much about Derek. We want to meet him." Susan laughs and invites the monsters to come with her. General Monger informs them that local authorities have already been told not to attack them. With that, the group heads to Susan's home. A welcome home party has been organized in her honor. Everyone is excited to see her again. Susan asks her mom where Derek is. Her mother explains that he's still at work. Wanting to surprise him, Susan heads straight to his office. Meanwhile, the other monsters stay behind and enjoy the party. They're having the time of their lives. Unfortunately, their unusual behavior ends up scaring most of the guests. Before long, people begin leaving the party and running away from the monsters. Meanwhile, Susan reaches Derek's office and literally lifts him out of the building with one hand. She's genuinely happy to see him. Susan tells him, "If we work together, maybe I can become normal again." But Derek's response completely breaks her heart. "I can't put my entire career on hold just to fix what's happened to you." Hearing those words, Susan is devastated. She finally realizes that Derek cares more about himself than he does about her. Fighting back tears, she leaves. Later, Susan sits alone at a gas station, trying to process everything that's happened. Before long, the other monsters find her and sit down beside her. The missing link sighs and says, "No matter how many people we save, they'll always see us as monsters." Susan thinks about Derek for a moment and finally says, "You know what? Derek is selfish. It just took me way too long to see it." Then she smiles. And honestly, I'm happier without him. I defeated that alien robot on my own. Wanting to cheer everyone up, Susan starts pointing out all the things that make each monster special. For the first time in a long while, they begin feeling proud of who they are. But their moment doesn't last long. Suddenly, a massive spaceship appears in the sky. Galaxar has arrived. A powerful beam shoots down from the ship and locks onto Susan. Before she can escape, she's pulled into the air and dragged aboard the spacecraft. Insectosaurus immediately rushes to help her, but Galaxar attacks the giant creature with overwhelming force. The blast hits Insectosaurus directly. The monster falls from the sky and appears to be dead. Susan is horrified. Meanwhile, Galaxar throws her into a prison cell aboard his ship. A short time later, he personally comes to retrieve her. As he escorts her through the vessel, he finally explains everything. The quantonium inside you belongs to me. It's one of the most powerful substances in the universe. That's why you became a monster. Susan fires back. I didn't steal anything from you. Then she angrily adds, and because of your obsession, innocent people and my friends have gotten hurt. Filled with rage, Susan breaks out of her cell and attacks him. Galaxar quickly retreats deeper into the ship. Susan chases after him until they reach a massive extraction chamber. That's exactly what Galaxar wanted. The entire thing was a trap. The moment Susan enters, Galaxar activates the machine and locks her inside. The chamber begins pulling the quantonium out of her body. Within moments, Susan shrinks back to her normal size. For the first time since the meteor strike, she's human again. Galaxar smiles and says, "Now I'll use this power to conquer your planet and destroy everything." Susan pleads with him. The people of Earth never did anything to you. But Galaxar reveals the truth. I destroyed my own planet. Susan is shocked. Galaxar continues, I've always dreamed of creating a world of my own, a perfect world, a world called Galaxar Planet. Then he looks at Earth. And now, after all these years, that dream is finally about to come true. Using the extracted quantonium, Galaxar begins creating thousands of clones of himself. An enormous clone army starts filling the ship. Soon afterward, Galaxar broadcasts a message to the entire world. He announces that, within 24 hours, most of Earth's population will be wiped out. Anyone who survives will be used for experiments. The message throws the entire planet into panic. People everywhere begin running for safety. Meanwhile, Dr. Cockroach turns to Bob and the missing link. We have to save Susan. The monsters immediately agree. They head to General Monger for help. After hearing their plan, the general prepares them for a rescue mission. Impressed by their courage, he gives each of them a respectful salute. The three monsters then launch toward Galaxar's ship using special flying gear. At the same time, Galaxar attacks General Monger's aircraft and blows it out of the sky. Fortunately, the general survives by deploying a parachute. He lands safely on Insectosaurus, who is surprisingly still alive. Meanwhile, B.O.B., Dr. Cockroach, and the missing link successfully board the alien ship. At that very moment, Galaxar orders his clones to throw Susan into an incinerator. The monsters rush through the ship's machinery and race to save her. They arrive just in time. Luckily, Galaxar's clones can't tell them apart from the other clones. Because of that, the clones accidentally hand them ID cards and weapons, thinking they're allies. The monsters can hardly believe their luck. While exploring the ship, Dr. Cockroach discovers something important. The vessel's main power core is located directly above the extraction chamber. He quickly tells the others, if we destroy that power core, we can save Earth. Dr. Cockroach accidentally destroys one of the clones. Immediately, alarms start going off. The entire ship realizes that monsters have infiltrated the vessel. Furious, Galaxar orders all clones to eliminate them. A massive battle breaks out throughout the ship. Fighting their way through endless waves of clones, the monsters continue pushing toward the extraction chamber. With B.O.B. helps, they finally reach the power core. But there's one problem. The system is protected by a complicated security lock. Thinking fast, Dr. Cockroach begins jumping across a series of colorful control buttons. It almost looks like he's dancing. The crazy plan actually works. The security system fails, and suddenly, the entire spaceship begins self-destructing. Realizing the danger, Galaxar orders his computer to move the quantonium to the bridge and prepare an escape route. Before the ship explodes. All around them, clones begin rushing toward the exits as emergency doors start closing. The monsters use their gadgets to escape as well, but at the last second, only Susan manages to make it outside. The others are trapped inside the collapsing ship. The other monsters tell Susan to leave and save herself, but Susan refuses. There's no way she's abandoning her friends. Using one of the escape gadgets, she heads straight back toward Galaxar. Seeing this, Galaxar orders his robots and clones to stop her at all costs. Susan dodges attack after attack as she fights her way through the collapsing ship. Eventually, she reaches Galaxar. "Open the gate. My friends are still trapped inside." But Galaxar refuses. Instead, he turns and tries to escape. Susan quickly stops him. That's when Galaxar tells her the truth. "I can't open the gates. The entire ship is about to explode because of what you've done." Susan looks around and notices the extracted quantonium nearby. Thinking fast, she grabs a machine gun and fires at the container holding the quantonium. The container shatters. A massive wave of quantonium energy pours directly onto her. Within seconds, Susan transforms back into Ginormica. She's huge again and stronger than ever. Meanwhile, inside the ship, heavy debris is about to crush Dr. Cockroach. At the last possible moment, Susan bursts through the wreckage and saves them. Her friends are thrilled to see her again. Working together, they race toward the exits. Susan carries everyone to safety, but just when it seems they've escaped, they end up hanging from the side of the exploding ship, and the entire vessel is seconds away from blowing apart. Then something incredible happens. Insectosaurus suddenly appears. He's alive. Earlier, when General Monger landed on him, a strange transformation was triggered. Instead of remaining a giant insect, Insectosaurus evolved into a gigantic butterfly. He swoops in and rescues everyone. The monsters are overjoyed to see their friend alive. With Galaxar defeated and Earth saved, the heroes finally return home. Later, they arrive at Susan's house, where they're welcomed as celebrities. This time, people don't see them as monsters, they see them as heroes. Susan's parents couldn't be prouder. But then Derek suddenly shows up with a camera crew. Acting like nothing ever happened, he tells Susan, "I forgive you, none of this was your fault." Susan immediately realizes he's only thinking about himself again. Derek then reveals that he's been offered a job opportunity in New York. The catch? He needs an exclusive interview with Susan to get it. In other words, he's trying to use her for his own benefit. This time, Susan isn't fooled. In front of the cameras, she calls Derek out for being selfish and caring more about his career than the people around him. Then, to everyone's amusement, she tosses him straight into Bob's gelatinous body. Just then, General W.R. Monger arrives. He has another mission. "The world needs you again," he tells the team. The monsters immediately pay attention. The general explains that a snail has fallen into a nuclear reactor and transformed into a giant mutant creature. Now it's causing chaos and needs to be stopped. Instead of being worried, Susan gets excited. After all, she's always wanted to visit Paris. With smiles on their faces, the monsters head off on their next adventure. This movie reminds us that being different isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's exactly what makes us heroes. Susan spent the whole story trying to become normal again, only to realize that she was strongest when she accepted who she really was.